Peace and love, you beautiful miracles with a spiritual level of being. Nathan here from a spiritual level of being, and today I'll discuss the forbidden fruit of knowledge and the tree of knowledge. Now, throughout the ancient era, ancient Christians and ancient Jews all had their own interpretations and their own view of what the forbidden fruit was and what the meaning behind the tree of knowledge was. Now, some ancient Christians and Jews believed it was a fig, some believed the forbidden fruit was a date, a banana, a peach. The Greeks later introduced the apple. Now, the Gnostics and Essenes believed it was a magic mushroom, because if you eat an apple, you're not going to receive visions. That was a Greek later added in story. The Bible actually doesn't say what it is. Now, these stories aren't meant to be taken literally, but symbolically. Now, the tree of knowledge actually represents sex, carnal desire, carnal knowledge. And the Gnostics knew this because God didn't want Adam and Eve to procreate. He wanted them to live forever and just serve him. So, obedient servants. Now, he freaks out when they eat the tree of knowledge, and he says, keep them away from the tree of life unless they become gods like us. So he didn't want them to discover their inner divine. He also didn't want them to know the knowledge of the universe, and Gnostic said because Yahweh didn't create it. He just wanted servants to worship him as God. So rather, he didn't want you to know your own spark of divine, because you wouldn't need this made-up idol, this made-up gods in a sense, because you realised that absolute and all was you. The divine is within you. So the Gnostics seen the mind as a treasure, meaning the mind is able to comprehend this, it's able to comprehend reality. So you're basically thoughts. So the Gnostics were quite advanced. Now, this being said, humans weren't meant to procreate. Adam and Eve were meant to live forever and just serve Yahweh. That was all he needed. But he was very dumb in a sense, because he planted the tree of knowledge right there where they were meant to not eat it. So maybe they were meant to eat it, and then he punished them anyway. So this is kind of sick and twisted. A bipolar, abusive stepfather or something. So the Gnostics understood this, and they seen this whole moral issue as wrong. And they seen this not as a god, but the villain that just wanted slaves. And Yahweh, Yahweh worshippers pretty much enforced slavery, death, murder. And Yahweh was okay with wars. He was okay with slavery. He was okay with sacrifice. He demanded sacrifice. So there were many ancient factions to Judaism that were against this as well. And some worshipped Elion. Some worshipped all variety of gods and sun gods and goddesses. And this is because of it came pretty much from the Canaanite culture, which had many gods. Also influences of Babylonia, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. Now, the Jews themselves were also conquered by vast amounts of people, especially the Babylonians, so they would have adapted some of their legends and folklore into their traditions. Now, the same thing has happened with Rome and Greece. When they conquered the Greeks, in the end, the Greeks emerged victorious because they were the ones teaching the Romans how to learn maths, science, and ultimately the Greek language was more dominant than Latin. Otherwise, Latin would have been more successful, and in the end, it was the Greek language that emerged today. Though it's a bit different to what it was back then. We had different tongues of Greek, and it wasn't all the same. It was quite diverse, so some Greeks had a little bit of trouble communicating with each other. So, this being said, they could still communicate, it's just some words were a little bit different. So, the lower region would speak a little bit of a different tongue to the upper region. This is how cultures work. Eventually they join together and become a single nation in a sense, and bring within a new culture and a new language. The same thing has happened with the Normans. So, really, this whole story is just about you discovering yourself and no longer needing these old gods, these old traditions. Otherwise, if you're just simply going by blind faith and believing, you don't really know. And Gnostics were against this. They were rather know, and they were big into spiritual knowledge. They realised that God was within them, all life itself. So peace and love, everyone. I love you all. Connect to one mind and soul. Namaste.